Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. The Other Side lets you hear directly from the most connected players and observers across the spectrum of politics in Mississippi. From breaking news to political strategy to interviews with candidates and elected officials, we'll bring you facts, perspectives, and context that helps you cut through the noise and understand all sides of the story.
I'm Bobby Harrison with my colleague, Taylor Vance. Taylor, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Bobby. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We have somebody that's no stranger to this podcast, Robert Johnson, House member from Natchez, House Minority Leader. He's our guest today. How you doing, Representative Johnson?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
We normally have you on to talk about legislative issues since you are the House Democratic leader. But what everybody's talking about now, of course, is President Biden announcing recently that he's not going to seek re-election, and Vice President Harris kind of assuming the mantle of the Democratic Party. You happen to be a delegate to the Democratic Convention, and so I just thought it'd be appropriate to get you on to talk about that. First of all, are you a super delegate or just a regular delegate?
I'm a super delegate.
Well, that's appropriate.
We already knew you were a super legislator. We just didn't know if you were a super delegate.
Yeah. Let's rub it in. Look, somebody asked me, did the county I said, no, I told the county caucus people that I thought it was an excellent opportunity for some local people to get a chance to go to the convention. But we elected somebody and went to the state convention. They didn't elect anybody from Adams County. So I guess I was lucky that they chose me as a super delegate because apparently we didn't have the numbers to get elected at the state convention.
Well, look, you sort of jumped into a historic process. We don't see this. I hadn't seen it maybe ever. I guess there's something a little similar in '68, but it's not exactly the same. What's going to happen? Do you know how? I think everybody knows Vice President Harris will be the nominee, but what the process how's that going to work?
So, it's interesting you asked that question. This is my first foray into the whole convention process. And in terms of my participation in the Democratic Party, I'm a Democrat. I support the party, but I've tried to stay outside of the internal politics of the party. But I was selected as a super delegate. Derek Simmons was selected, the two House Minority Leaders, which I think is appropriate for us to be there and do that. So a lot of this is new to me too. But I think what is happening now is new to everybody. And this Ohio law that is, everybody has to be on the ballot by a certain date. Apparently, people have the legal scholars on this issue say, yeah, they say that, but you'll still be eligible for the ballot up until the end of August, I think. But apparently, out of an abundance of caution, the Democratic Party is asking all of the delegates to send a certified signed copy of who they're planning to cast their votes for, because I think there's going to be a virtual roll call vote August 1st, and they're going to have enough virtual votes on board to be able to announce to Ohio and any other early ballot states that this is who our candidate is.
Yeah, now, Representative Johnson, I know that the Mississippi delegates had met this week. I believe it was on Monday night, and I think y'all had a meeting and a conference call, and then you decided unanimously to endorse Vice President Harris for the nominee. Why did the party or why did the delegates decide to go that route instead of just heading straight to a convention without having decided beforehand?
I think to a person, let me say this. Before President Biden made that announcement, that we had also had a meeting and decided that we were going to make an announcement in the midst of all that chaos that this entire delegation was 100% behind President Biden. And when he stepped, but we were taking our time to do that. And when he made the announcement, we decided that it was important that we, be firm in our position, and we were hopeful that around the country, that the party was unified, and that after all of this, public airing of all the family laundry and all of the back and forth with Democrats about who ought to run. It was important, I thought, and a lot of people thought, that we quickly show unity and show our support for the vice president.
Have you met Vice President Harris before?
I met her when she was running for president briefly. No more so than nothing personal or individual. I was in a crowd like everybody else, got a chance to say hello and shake her hand. But that's all I know. But I met with her, some of her staff when she was running, and had indicated to me before she dropped out of the race that I was strongly considering supporting her. I met with her sister. This was early on in the primary back in 20, and I be quite honest with you, I couldn't make up my mind between Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. That's where I was standing.
Okay, and
but that's as close as I came to meeting with them. But at that time, I felt like they offered the most viable opportunity to beat Donald Trump.
Yeah, and she came during that time at least once to campaign for Mike Espy for the U.S. Senate seat.
Yeah, she was down at the Hilton Garden Inn, I think, and some other places.
Yeah. But going back to what you said earlier, I think you we let it pass, but I think you might have made some news. At least I hadn't seen. I think you mentioned August 1st for the virtual vote. I hadn't seen that.
Well, that's what I was told, that we needed to have all our votes cast by the end of July because they wanted to make some announcement. They wanted to do something on August 1st. So I just got mine in yesterday.
So that tells us that she will pick a vice presidential running mate by that date.
Or around.
I've heard that by that date, or by no later than August 7th, that she'll have picked her candidate.
Yeah, the sort of top names that are being circulated right now for a VP nominee are, Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and Governor Whitmer of Michigan, and a few others. But do you have any other a particular preference on who you would like to see Vice President Harris pick as her running mate?
Well, I'm just a state legislator. I'm reading the news like everyone else. I'm following people's comments and looking at personalities. All those names you named are extremely capable people. I think they're charismatic. But I think this is a perfect opportunity for a presidential candidate to pick a Southern vice presidential candidate. And I quite frankly think Beshear out of Kentucky, out of all those people you named, is the most impressive person. I mean, on the stump, being able to speak. Well, actually, the most impressive person, just delivering a message and taking questions. I've never seen anybody better than Pete Buttigieg. But after that, I would. My favorite would be Beshear. I think it would galvanize whatever votes that are available in the South. I think he presents himself, and his politics are politics that would work in the Rust Belt and across the swing states. And that is the person that I think. And he's young. He's charismatic. He's younger than most of them. Shapiro is young too. I don't think Whitmer is viable in the sense that, there's a question whether or not the country is ready for a female president. But I'm certain that they're probably not ready for two. And that's quite just as a practical matter, I have to wonder as credentialed as Buttigieg. I think he's the best. He's the best person of all of them. I just wonder, how it would help the ticket to have a gay married man on the ticket. But he is certainly, I'm engrossed every time I see him before a Senate or House committee or whenever he makes a speech. He's just one of the best people out there to be in charge of anything in this country. But I would, right now, politically, as a practical matter, I think Andy Beshear would add more to the ticket than anyone.
Representative Johnson, just to cover your bases there, when you were saying the country might not be ready for a gay man or might be to have two women on a ticket. You talking about electability, not necessarily what your preference is.
Oh no, I'm talking about electability.
Yeah,
As I keep saying, but nobody's more capable than Buttigieg, and I think Gretchen Whitmer has shown us to be an extremely effective governor and a policy maker. I'm just, I'd vote for that ticket 50 times over. If they ran 50 times, I'd vote for them every time. Either one of those tickets.
Yeah.
But
I just wanted to protect you. I didn't want. I mean,
yeah.
You know how.
I'm ready for them. I just don't know if the country.
Yeah.
So I don't reflect the mainstream of what everybody is. So I was just as a practical man.
So what made you? I mean, you say you don't get involved in try to stay out of the inner workings of the party politics, but you decided you were going to be you'd be willing to be a delegate this year. What?
I was asked. I was asked if I would be willing to be, and I said yes, I would.
Okay, you were asked by Chairman Taylor.
Yeah, Chairman Taylor.
Yeah, how do you think he's doing?
I think with what he inherited, I think he's doing a fantastic job. We still have a ways to go in terms of our ability to fundraise, but that'll come with time. And we have to establish more relationships outside of the state. We don't have as many fundraising resources inside the state as we used to. But I think the appeal politically of what the possibilities are in Mississippi, I think I feel this way. I think the egregious way that the governor governs, I think we make a great case for people wanting to help us make change in the state. And I think Chairman Taylor is very sensitive about that, very understanding about it. And I think we're beginning to see the fruits of being able to tell our story and tell our potential nationally. And he's the person that's going to help us broaden our reach in terms of getting support to help elect candidates here in this state.
When you look at this convention, I mean, you're going to be up there with all the Democrat leaders to be there. Do you look at this as a possibility to take the Mississippi story to the national stage and maybe get lobby for a little bit more national help that maybe y'all have gotten in the past?
I think there's always an opportunity. This convention will be, I think this is an opportunity to do that. There's going to be so much attention about the vice president's candidacy and the possibilities and women's issues and, dealing with immigration, as acute and as serious as our problems are. They pale to some of the larger national issues in terms of being able to protect women's rights and being able to make sure that we on the right side of international relations in terms of promoting a ceasefire in the Middle East and helping bring hostages home. What we'll do in the war against Russia with Ukraine. Those are going to be the things that are really pressing right now in this country. But I can tell you that with the congressman there and the rest of the delegates in tow, that I think we'll get a chance with our new leadership to do exactly what your question asked about, establish relationships and put us in a position to make a case for why people need to pay more attention about what needs to happen in Mississippi. That's certainly one of the things I would be focused on.
Yeah. So, I think, most national outlets are reporting now that Vice President Harris has enough delegates right now to secure the nomination. That's not really in question. You were talking about, practically, politically, you would like to see someone like Andy Beshear serve as her running mate, and that he could, possibly be an effective communicator to Southern voters and voters in swing states. And I say all that to ask, what role do you think that the Deep South could play in this election? I mean, I know, Mississippi is not a swing state, but do you think voters in the Deep South are galvanized? Do you think they're energized and plugged into this election? And, do you think that there maybe could be surprises perhaps in Georgia or a state like that? Just what do you think what role could the South play in this election?
Well, I've the number of times I've run for office, I tell people one of the keys to being successful. There are other ways, but my way is being as charismatic and being as sensitive and then understanding the issues as much as possible. The public, we don't give the public enough credit for being educated about what issues are. More importantly, being educated about what issues affect them. And so I think Vice President Harris brings that kind of energy and that kind of charisma that makes people want to go out and get behind a person like that. And I think somebody like Andy Beshear does the same thing. And what he brings to the table is, I don't think people get a chance to talk about how difficult the conditions are in red states in the South. It's interesting that states like Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, for that matter, all are just pretty much run by Republican-led legislators, Republican-led governor's offices, and nobody is addressing the acute needs of the people who live there. It has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans, but everybody wants good roads, good water, sewer, good public safety. I mean, law enforcement who are financed and funded at a requisite level. And more importantly, they want access to health care. I mean, those three things are things that there's no, if government did nothing else, those are the three things it must do. And of course, public education. But in states like in the South, some attention, some cover has to be pulled off of how people are governing in this state and how important it is to have more federal influence in terms of input and making sure that the resources that are available are being used in the correct way. And somebody like Andy Beshear can talk about being a Democratic governor in a red state and saying, this is what leadership looks like. This is how you deal with a Republican legislature who says no to everything. This is how you deal with a Republican legislature who wants to take the rights of women away. This is how you deal singularly as a governor. This is how I say, look, if I have to bring you to the table, this is what we do. Or if I have to fight you or veto bills and find a way to keep you from overriding that's been my experience. But I will govern based on what my core principles are and not what my political convenience is. And that's what somebody from the South can say. All of this, these policies that people try to implement. I was reading a policy about the critical race theory and getting rid of DEI and all of these things that are not critical to people's daily livelihood, but they make good political fodder. And nobody's talking about the fact that there are people in this state that have to drive 50 miles to get to an emergency room. And nobody's talking about the fact that when we talk about how much money we put in public education, there's still schools that don't have central heat or air and also that don't have Wi-Fi in the school. I mean, we need to talk about what really happens, or the fact that there's still 28% of our bridges are impassable or are in poor conditions, are not safe in this state. I mean, those are the kind of things that people need to focus on. And you got governors walking around talking about transgender issues and in vitro fertilization, and those things are personal things, individual liberties that ought to be protected, and you ought to leave alone. Why don't you just go and do your job and take care of things that makes people's lives work? And that's what a Southern governor who has been successful in getting elected in a Republican state that Mitch McConnell is the senator from, that's what he can bring to the table. And that's what he can talk about across the Rust Belt, swing states, and everywhere. He doesn't have an agenda. He has a people's agenda.
Along those lines, sort of bring it back to President Biden, you could argue, I mean, and people will get mad for me saying this, but you could argue that some of the major legislation he passed that dealt with some of those issues you talked about, infrastructure, broadband, even healthcare, probably helps southern states, red states, value southern states more than any other parts of the country. Water and sewer.
Yeah, without question. Look, the southern states have the greatest need. If I use Mississippi as an example, we have we get D and F grades on infrastructure. We get D and F grades on healthcare. We'll have some come up with education, but we're still behind in terms of what the rest of the country is doing. And so the fact, I tell people all the time when you look at the history of how they formulate the ACA, and when they talk about infrastructure issues, they use Mississippi. If it can work in Mississippi, it can work anywhere. And so I think the country understands that. What they don't understand is how are we sending these kind of resources down there and they're not getting to the people that need them. And new leadership. One of the criticisms I have of the Biden administration is they didn't spend enough time talking about, this is what we sent you. This is what we're doing for you. This is how we're helping the country. This is how we're helping your state. And so you shouldn't even consider thinking about anybody else. Nobody has done more. Nothing has happened for the state of Mississippi in the shortest amount of time in terms of resources than we've gotten help in the Biden administration. The infrastructure money, some people say, well, some of that was coming after COVID, fine. But we've got money inputted, that has come to this state through the Biden administration. And you would think that Republicans would at least say thank you, but they act like it never happened. And they're spending money hand over foot, and it's all federal money. And it's all going to Republican areas. The vast majority of it is going to Republican areas, while at the same time they're walking around dog cussing everything that the president has done. And so we need to have more people on the federal level talking about, and a southern governor on the ticket would be able to say, nah, we're sending the money. This is what they're doing, and this is how we deal with it, and this is how we have to make them do it right.
Representative Johnson, appreciate your time. I have one final question for you. You're kind of been a political analyst on this podcast. We appreciate that. Appreciate your time. But I'm sitting here looking at Taylor Vance, and Taylor would he have a whole vote under the J.D. Vance system of government? I think Taylor even has a cat.
Oh, yeah, I think that may disqualify. Apparently, cat people are a problem. and cat people who also don't have children.
I do not own a cat, but I help take care of some of my friends' cats. So maybe I have half a vote.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
As we cover the biggest political stories in the state, you don't want to miss an episode of The Other Side. We'll bring you more reporting from every corner of the state, sharing the voices of Mississippians and how they are impacted by the news. So what do we need from you, the listener? We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes or Stitcher, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That address is podcast@MississippiToday.org. Y'all can also reach out to me or any of my colleagues through social media or email. And as always, thank you for your feedback and support. Subscribe to our weekly podcast on your favorite podcast app or stream episodes online at MississippiToday.org/theotherside. For the Mississippi Today team, I'm Adam Ganeshow. The Other Side is produced by Mississippi Today and engineered by Blue Sky Studios. We hope you'll join us for our next episode.